Hello, everyone, and welcome to Coffee with Convery, where we explore stories, insights, and careers that inspire the next generation. In this special edition of Legacy in Motion Black History Month, I sit down now with Diallo Farquharson, an innovative entrepreneur tackling housing inequalities and sustainable urban development. As the co-founder of TurnKey Developers, Diallo is on a mission to revolutionize housing solutions by making backyard suites more accessible, helping homeowners maximize their property values while also addressing the growing needs for diverse housing options. With a background in civil and structural engineer, his experience spans infrastructure development, regulatory compliance, and a cutting-edge design. So, whether you're passionate about entrepreneurship, urban planning, or making a tangible impact in your community, this conversation is for you. Diallo, welcome to the Coffee with Convery podcast.
Thank you, Brian. I'm really grateful for you having me here. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Me too, me too. I'm super excited. So maybe we first start off like rapid fire questions. People like to hear a little bit about you, a little bit about your superpower. So what is your superpower?
Superpower. I've been told I'm a good listener, so I'd say that's superpower.
That's a great skill. What was your favorite subject in school?
This actually spans back to high school. I really liked technical drawing in high
Ah,
school. Yeah, back then in the Bahamas, it was T squares and set squares, drawing on paper, and yeah, that was my favorite
very
class.
cool. That is cool. It's almost like so it's all by hand, not by like CAD drawings and stuff.
Yeah.
Cool.
Coming up, it was all by hand. So we had boards and we just used to draw. And one of the things we had to do was take national exams, like when we were graduating high school. And that was my favorite exam to take, even. I ended up getting like the highest in the Bahamas on
Wow.
that exam. And
Wow.
that was just an amazing experience.
Wow. What a combination of creativity and mind with that. That's cool. What was your very first job?
My first job was it was in university. I was actually facility attendant, personal trainer, and the supervisor at the university gym.
Nice. Awesome.
Yeah,
If you had to describe yourself in one word, what would it be?
I'd say driven.
Driven. Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, let's jump into your story. So, I always listeners want to know about how did you get where you are? So, can you talk us, maybe walk through a little bit of your career journey, how you got to where you are today?
This is an interesting moment. I would have never thought that at this time I'd be asked, how did I get here? I still feel like I'm on the way, but excited to share.
Sure.
Every career, this starts with learning. My journey was anything but linear. The maze, right? Ups and downs and navigating from here and there. For undergrad, I went to Florida Institute of Technology. So
Okay.
that's down in the East Coast on Melbourne, Florida. And that was a really fulfilling experience. It gave me a lot of valuable friendships, great experiences with professors. It gave me the opportunity to attend Oxford University in England, actually, for a short time. So did some studying there, engineering consulting, and also to do topside and underwater inspections. I did an internship with a company. We used to assess marinas and bridges, and that was very, very fun for me because I grew up in the Bahamas. I loved the water, free diving, spearfishing, scuba diving, and so being able to dive for work was really enjoyable. Even had some fun stories with alligators and crocodiles. So
Mm.
yeah, it was interesting, that's for sure. Um, but while I was in, I guess, that part of my life, I did what I was supposed to do, secured the stellar GPA. I really pushed, got the 4.0 in the last semester and the bachelor's degree, landed the job in the US before graduation. But as with many people, life had other plans. And for me, that was the wild card of U.S. immigration. So
Mm.
I found myself back in the Bahamas, and I consider that a bit of a low point in my life. Some might have even, they might even say it's a bit of a depression.
Hmm.
that I experienced. However, it led to a really incredible experience because then I was offered a really great opportunity to be a part of a huge water park development. So I was working with the best engineering firm in the Bahamas, Braun Limited.
Hmm.
They're specialized in resort hospitality, private island development. And so when I was brought on, we were doing a $200 million water park development for the Bahama Hotel on resort. So that was a great experience. And just being at that company, it opened my eyes a bit to some of the projects that wealthier individuals were doing, the way they thought about real estate development. And then when I combined that with that point in my life where I felt like I was down and I didn't really want to go anywhere. I was on the weekends, I wasn't really catching up with friends. I just
Mm.
felt like I was in a rut. Like there was, and eventually it came to a point where I felt like there was more that I should be doing. And I wanted to build something impactful. And then I started running in the morning. I stumbled across some of those motivational YouTube videos. So I did that and then read business books, personal development books, and all of that really kind of gave me a springboard and pushed me to that next level. At that time, I had no idea what it was that I was supposed to be doing. I just knew that there was something more that I felt that I could be doing. And so moving to Canada for my master's degree, I did that at University of Toronto, and I was looking forward to sharpening technical skills, but I really was excited for their elite emphasis. So they had this program because I actually considered doing an MBA within
Mm.
my master's, but then I really wanted to get started, and that would have required the GRE exams and all of that. So I was so grateful when I found U of T. So I had the ability to do structural engineering, but then also this entrepreneurship, leadership, and innovation. I guess we could call it a minor, so to
Yeah.
speak.
Yeah.
And so when I was there, it felt like a fresh start. New city. I just wanted to experience everything. I went to the gym, I went to a bunch of events, I did welding class, I did fencing, I went to management consulting, like seminars and events. I even stumbled across the entrepreneurship hatchery, which is one of the incubators. I went to idea workshops, accelerator weekend. It's like a petition, their Nest summer program. And it's actually where the idea for TurnKey first started. And so
Wow.
TurnKey, it is a startup focused on making backyard housing or garden suites, as it's called in Toronto, more accessible. For the benefit of the listeners, a garden suite is pretty much a self-contained dwelling that the city recently made it legal for a homeowner to build it in their backyard. And so the mission is really to streamline decision making for property owners using real-time data, fixed cost solutions to make building them easier.
Hmm.
And so in that summer program, it was so interesting. I was always that person, especially in undergrad, that when summers came, I never went home to the Bahamas. I knew that to put myself in a better position, I should seek some internships, get some experience. And so I was always chasing that internship. But now you fast forward to being in Toronto at U of T, I traded the internships for entrepreneurship. And it felt very, very different. It
Yeah.
felt like, what am I doing? Like, this is risk, right? And that wasn't easy. And it's funny because when you hear people talk about entrepreneurship and that it's hard, I'm like, okay, I hear that. And then I figured, okay, well, it's probably a bit harder than what they're making out to be. So I added a bit of extra expectation for hardship. But then still, it was like 3 or 4 times harder than that. And I said, wow, well, we just got to keep on pushing, right? There was times when I found myself I was actually working night shifts at Loblaws to fund the business and the startup while we were in these programs, right? All night, doing 20,000 steps, picking orders, the night shift. getting off at 8 a.m. after a full night and then rushing home for breakfast so that I could get in my 9 a.m. startup meetings. So like it was really
Wow.
a really trying time, really, but it all of that was part of the story, and I enjoyed it. It was something it gave me some passion, right? And
Yeah.
getting product market fit, especially when you want to solve a scalable problem in something so, I guess, traditional as real estate development, it can be difficult
Yeah.
because our target audience is the older generation, right? And if I was back in the Bahamas, this would have been the generation that witnessed me grow up. Like at high school, they saw me as a top performer. They saw me get the awards, like the character awards, high exam scores, all of these things, serving on boards. And if they were here, like they would be the target market. They would already know what I stand for, right? They know
Hmm.
that I do things like a certain way, that I don't take shortcuts, all of these things, the level of care that I bring. But now you're in a new country, completely unfamiliar, new people, new culture, new everything. And you're going into it with no character capital, right? You just
Interesting. Yeah.
have to build the trust from 0 to 1, just like the startup. And so that presents challenges. And between then and now, I have been involved in structural engineering, consulting, forensics, architectural design. That's been a great experience. It's given me the opportunity to secure so many building permits in over 40 cities across Southern Ontario.
Wow.
As far west as London, you go down to Niagara, all the way east Prince Edward County, nearing Ottawa, far north, like everywhere. And so all of that has kind of contributed to what I do now, the way that I see and view challenges, solutions. And today at TurnKey, we're trying to leverage technology, including AI, to help property owners determine whether building a garden suite is financially viable for them.
Amazing. What an impactful journey. And I love the fact that you used the idea around the character capital. I never really thought of it in those terms. And you're right. You have not just a brand, but really kind of building up yourself for people to want to work with you and go to you, right, for these things. And thank you for sharing that. I have a couple more questions as we go forward. I know this podcast too, we're touching upon in the middle of Black History Month, obviously time to celebrate achievements, reflect on progress, but you also know that there's been ongoing struggles for equality and justice. And I'm just curious to you, and your experiences, what does this month mean to you?
Yeah, personally, I mean, it means different things personally and professionally. Personally, for me, it's a time to reflect on the opportunities that I've been afforded
Mhm.
and also the experiences that I've been protected from. Professionally, I definitely reflect on the problems I'm currently facing. And I like to remind myself that it's a privilege because there are many that fought for these opportunities and fought to be in the places that I'm in, the spaces that I'm able to contribute to. And so these opportunities they come with problems. Right? So it's a package deal, and I just have to be grateful for it all. And so that's kind of Black History Month where my mind is usually.
Yeah, makes sense. And also with this month, I always like to talk about it because I feel like it's not just a month, right? It's an ongoing things that happen and events that happen and stuff. But I definitely want to put a focus on it this month with people like yourself. So thank you for sharing that. I know like you talked about like even the underwater thing I find so interesting, and I know you shared that. How long can you hold your breath? Was it four
Oh,
minutes? Is it four?
it's my yeah, 4 minutes. That's my longest breath hold that I ever did. Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy. So, thinking about sort of these experiences, how have they also shaped your mindset for what you're doing now as it relates to, thinking about housing challenges and creating economic opportunities? Do those things come into play as, skills that you tap into, entrepreneur, engineer, that kind of thing?
Definitely, they do. They do. And one of my mentor is Obana Ize. He actually we were having a discussion once, and he tried to frame the whole, I guess, technical aspect and any entrepreneurial pursuits. He likened it to the letter T in the alphabet. So the vertical component is your technical skills, right? And then you have the horizontal component that kind of adds that final layer is more the maybe the business, the entrepreneurial pursuits, that MBA, right? And
Yeah.
so starting for me, the whole foundation, that vertical component of the T, civil engineering, that gave me a technical foundation. It made me an analytical thinker. It gave me the opportunity to assess things at scale. Right? We were often working in very big projects. As mentioned earlier, the water park development, that was a really big one. Most engineers in the Bahamas likely don't get that opportunity because it's not every day that resorts are being built, and it's in the Bahamas specifically, and then also that they're building water parks, right? So 15 acres, $200 million, numerous international consultants. It was scale that I was looking at, and it taught me that success is more than the technical outcome.
Hmm.
It's the people, it's the schedules, it's whether expectations were being met. And adding to that, technical portion was now locally the structural engineering and forensics work that I was doing. And that really took things to a granular level for me. It reinforced some of my assumptions about the way businesses could be run more efficiently, and having to design and inspect structures of so many different ages and
Yeah.
materials, houses that were done years ago, farmhouses, the different forms of factories, commercial developments like banks. It was a whole plethora of experience, new builds and subdivisions. It really gave me insight on how the industry developed. So even though I wasn't born and raised here, that experience gave me such a holistic view of everything, the nitty gritty, the way that the kinds of materials that were used in the past, what's used now. I was able to see structures at the end of their life, as well as the beginning. And really, this shaped my thinking because I assessed what failed when I was sent out to a job. I had to contemplate why it failed. And then we had to develop solutions for fire damages, water damages,
Yeah.
wind, tree impacts, vehicle impacts, everything. So all of this kind of ties into the whole understanding housing, the design aspects, the permit aspects, the whole process. And now to top off that horizontal component of the T with entrepreneurship, that added a layer to my perspective. And it really reiterated that it's not just about the design aspects. It's not just about how pretty the visuals are when you're trying to present concepts to people, how beautiful your website is, how organized and great your processes are, right? Or even the construction, the stick build or the prefab or the modular components, like all of it's really about making the solution financially viable,
Mm.
accessible to people. And through TurnKey, I noticed that even when projects checked all the boxes, a lot of times people struggle with the decision making. Like, and that's why we're constantly looking for people, even now, who want to build suites with or without us. So we could really capture pain points and the annoyances along the way, iterate so that we can determine the real jobs to be done.
Yeah, I wonder if like you maybe could talk a little bit about Turnkey, how it came about and what you guys do there, because there's going to be listeners here who might be perked up about this idea, and I know you and I have talked about it even in my property a little bit.
Mhm.
But maybe could you talk a little bit about it a little bit more so people can understand it and how to reach out to you if they're interested?
Certainly. So Turnkey is in the garden suite space, primarily focused here in Toronto. We handle the everything from the planning and design through to the build of garden suites. We come out, do site assessments. We're able to help with the designs, get all the permits done, and as well as assist with the construction. And I think one of the things that makes us different is like partly, myself, like this kind of experience that I've had with all of these different components. And then some of the team, like we have a really good architect who's experience in high-rise developments, notable developments all across the city, and then designers who work on a lot of like commercial projects, like top name brands in Yorkville, right? So
Yep.
you have all of these different components and people that are bringing this multi-million dollar insight and thinking and organization to your community, right? You can get a garden suite done, and we're focused on making it make sense for you. Like that's really the passion behind it, right? We love real estate development, and so yeah, we can be reached out by email projects at turnkeyto.ca, or you can head over to our website. That's turnkeyto.ca. Myself, I'm on LinkedIn as well, Diallo Farquharson, so reach out to me that way.
Yeah, I think it's such a pivotal spot that you're in right now because there is so much around housing scarcity and different things going on in the communities. And I just don't think if people don't know about it, they don't realize that what they can actually do with it, right? And getting educated more about it. So thanks for diving into that a bit more. I think it really helps, people understand that. You know, many of the listeners here are also looking for, maybe they're early in career or they're looking for a bold transition. What advice do you look at, or could you share maybe based on all the experiences you've had with those looking to carve out their own paths, especially, at a time where immigration and other things are being challenged in different parts of the world, or facing those systematic barriers? Any thoughts or ideas around how you would I mean, because you've made it through a couple of these things, but any thoughts around how these folks might want to put their mind to thinking about it?
Yeah, so in terms of advice, if you're looking to carve out your own path, facing certain barriers, uh, I think one of the first things you need to do, take calculated risks, right?
Mm,
You have to analyze potential obstacles. And when you want to go in a certain direction, you need to have at least one or two, I'd say ideally two alternatives, because there's always something unexpected. It's like you need to, okay, you want to get here. Let me think about what might derail me getting here. But then I also need a plan if something stops me dead in my tracks. Like, what am I going to do next? For me, an example of that was being an international student in Canada, being exposed to the whole entrepreneurship environment, trying to launch a startup. After graduation, you're on a timed work permit, right? And so,
right.
although I was trying to solve a housing problem for the city and make things better, still on a timed work permit, and that requires you having to work a 9 to 5 job after a certain point, right? In order to potentially get that permanent residency so that you could see the startup through, even, right?
Yep.
And so it's a big thing, the calculated risks. And then a second piece of advice I would say is to keep learning, whether it's through books, YouTube, online courses. New skills really unlock opportunities, and oftentimes being in transition, right? Whether that's after graduation, moving into career, or between jobs, it's usually an opportunity to develop highly transferable skills,
Yep.
right? If you're trying to assess different directions, it's like, okay, well, this is one path I could go. What are the most critical skills that will help me achieve that? Here's the second path. What are the most critical skills? And then which of those overlap? Like during that time, try and dig
Yep.
in on that particular thing, right? Because then that'll help you irrespective of the paths. Because for me, an example was when I was in the Bahamas. I remember there was a time when my boss, his name is Carlos Burgess, he asked me if I am comfortable with giving presentations. And at the time or in that moment, I mean, I told him definitely, like I have had to do it in university, so I know I could do it. But then he said, well, this next few days he's in this particular club, and he thinks that I should come out. It's to do with public speaking. It's called Toastmasters. And
Mhm.
so long story short, I ended up going. But when I reflect in that moment, when he asked me if I mind public speaking, I kind of curled up inside. I was like, is he going to ask me to speak in front of like to high school or something? And I realized, okay, this is a weakness that I'm shying away from. And I need to change that. Yes, maybe I'm in transition. I don't really know where I want to go, but public speaking is important, the ability to communicate. So let's tackle it. And I
Good
went and
for
I
you.
joined Toastmasters and it really changed my life.
Good for
So
you.
that's the second thing to keep learning. The third thing, don't be insular. Like there's a saying that goes, your network determines your net worth. And since I've been in Canada, I've seen it regularly, time and time again. You need to get out, you need to socialize, you need to network, even at times when you feel intimidated, when
Hmm.
you're wondering, should I go to this event? It's easier for you just to stay home. Maybe you don't know anyone there. So if I don't go, no one's going to miss me. But you need to go to those. And oftentimes you'll be happy that you went. There are many events that I went to. Even the people that I met, we laugh about it and talk about how much we didn't really want to come or we almost didn't come. And then everyone's like, oh, we're so happy that we went, right? At the end of the day, you find the most success when you lean on your communities. So you need to really spend time developing that.
That's great, great advice. And I think too, it's really changed over the years, especially for a lot of the young listeners who did so many things online. They may not have experienced a taste of some of this, and then now they're being told to network and they're fearing it, but at the same time, it takes a certain energy to just push yourself to go. Because if you do go, I mean, even like how I met you through an event, right? Like that wouldn't have happened. So it's it's so important, and I think you're right. There's sometimes where it's like, I could just sit at home, put on my cozy clothes and whatever, but you really do need to stretch yourself, which will stretch your mind and also your experiences, which is incredible. So really, really good advice. Thanks for sharing that. I wanted to ask you, you talked earlier about a mentor. So I wanted to ask you a little bit about mentorship and what that's done for you and how that's happened and what's your experiences around, mentors and mentorship.
Mentorship is an interesting thing. I think that oftentimes you don't, well, in my personal experience, I wasn't always seeking a mentor. It just kind of happened. Eventually, you're doing something, you meet someone that kind of resonates with you, and you find yourself listening to them. You find that they're eager to give you advice, that they're just interested in your story. And so that's how it's always been for me. It wasn't ever something particularly forced,
Hmm.
but I think one of the first pieces of advice is you do have to be intentional about seeking mentorship. You have to look for people that are a few steps ahead of you in your industry or your journey. You can't just find people that are at the top of their field, and you can't just find someone that's in the next stage that you want to be at. It might be insightful to meet someone that's at that very next stage. You want to find out some of the obstacles, but you should find someone that's a few steps ahead of you because now it opens you up to all of the paths and challenges that they experienced, maybe what made them choose one direction instead of the other, right? And then the second bit of advice would be to leverage the digital, but also the in-person communities. A great social entrepreneur by the name of Victor Boussolet, he once told me that entrepreneurship or success in general is a contact sport. So
Huh.
reiterating, you need to meet a lot of people, whether it's whether you're in industry or even in academia, just join the networking events, go to the panel discussions, go to the meetups, professional associations, any incubators that might be in your field. And lastly, I guess following up, when you find yourself in these particular spaces, you need to give before you take. So we need to share resources, like support other
Yeah.
professionals. We need to maybe just have, when you're having a conversation, ask them what they're up to. Uh, like, is there any way that you can help them? Is like a project that you could just jump in and assistance? Because one of the interesting things is in trying to serve, you give people a snapshot of who you are. your skills, like what you're good at. And this is great, right? Like that probably does more the whole character capital notion than anything else because you just offered to help. Your strengths came out. Now that particular individual remembers, oh, you helped me with this, and they come across opportunities. They know that you performed and that you helped them in this particular thing, so they could speak for you on, So, and then the whole volunteering aspect is good too,
Mhm.
because industry events, if you put yourself in those spaces and you're volunteering, then you meet key players, right? And it's a more natural or a more engaged way to meet people if you're volunteering at events.
That is, man, that's a lot to, you gave some really good ideas and advice there. Thank you. I was gonna say it's a lot to unpack, but it's actually really good. Like there's intentionality is so key, like you said, that's such an important part of it. I think sometimes we approach these things with, and I also like the fact that you talked about the mentor being, someone like organically, like you don't force it, right? I think that's the most important part. And a lot of great advice there. I have to ask you, with this being legacy in motion as the conversation starter here, what legacy do you hope to leave?
Hmm. I think if I could provide a design build experience that's seamless, transparent, and financially viable, then I would have made a real impact on urban development. And
Hmm.
but years from now, if people are living in spaces that they love because of my team, then like I'll know we've done something truly meaningful. So that's kind of the legacy that I hope to live.
I love it. I love it. And I hope through this a lot of people come to you and reach out to learn more about you, your journey, and also the great work you're doing. So thank you so much for sharing your journey, your incredible work. The transformation you're doing for accessibility and economic opportunities is incredible. Especially your commitment to innovation and community impact and empowering others is wonderful. And I'm so proud and happy to have you on this podcast.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Brian. And, it's always good to have a good conversation. And sometimes you just hope that there's something that you've done in your journey that can help someone else, something that they could take from it, that they could share with someone else. And so I'm really grateful for that opportunity.
Absolutely, absolutely. And there was so much here. I can't wait to replay it myself. So thank you. For our listeners, if you enjoyed today's episode, please share it with your network. You can always find us at coffeewithconvery.com or on your favorite podcast platform. Be also sure to follow us on Instagram for updates and more inspiring content. This is Coffee with Convery, where we show you that success isn't always about climbing the corporate ladder, but sometimes it's about building your own jungle gym right here. Thank you.